Imagine this. You stand alone in the dusk of an unfamiliar landscape. The sky above you hangs heavy, painted with the intense hues of a setting sun, a spectacle of beauty that commands the heavens and pulls at unseen strings of emotion within you. Shadows stretch eerily from the sudden twilight, etched sharply across the rolling plains, marking a road you've never traveled. In this place, time itself seems to hesitate, caught between the closing of one chapter and the silent promise of another. But despite the breathtaking beauty around you, an indescribable weight pins you in place, a subtle yet unyielding pressure that seems to hum beneath your skin, just out of reach of conscious identification. What is this dark companion, this unseen shadow that clings like a traveler's cloak, weary yet essential? It is guilt, the quiet puppeteer whose strings manipulate the unseen elements of your life with an elegance and precision that could only belong to a force as timeless as it is invisible. Picture yourself retracing your steps, back through a familiar path, laden with memories that flutter like moths around a flame. In a moment of sudden realization, you question those forgotten decisions woven quietly into the story of your being. Could they have been the unsung notes in the symphony of consequence that shapes the man or woman you are today? Why, you might wonder, do these past events linger, echoing softly at the edge of your consciousness? The choices that slipped through your fingers, the words spoken in anger or neglect, are they the real authors of the silent guilt that now commands your present life with such quiet omnipotence? Does this unseen force merely linger in memory, or does it carve the path you unwittingly tread every single day? Consider the paradox. The world views guilt as a preventive function, a marker of conscience and empathy. Yet, in its most sinister form, does guilt become a tyrant, stifling growth, creativity, and authentic self-expression? As you stand alone in the expanding darkness, suspended in this moment of introspection, you feel a pang of unnerving contradiction. Can something intended as a moral compass also be the iron bars of an invisible cage? Every life decision, ultimately guided by doctrines of morality and virtue, becomes intertwined with guilt in a complex dance. The philosopher's notion whispers in your mind, could it be that guilt's purpose is not in its righteous guidance, but in the shrouded chains it wraps subtly around our minds and hearts? A shackle that appears only when one dares to question their adherence to it? Imagine staring into the dim depths of a mirror, observing the narrative of your life unravel before you, the lofty aspirations, the achievements, the unsolicited comments that sway your trajectory, the fears fed by seemingly innocuous suggestions. The unending gravity of guilt shapes them all, quietly usurping control when you least expect it. What happens when the journey of self-discovery uncovers this unsettling truth, that your sense of self, your beliefs, and even your free will might be intertwined with the guilt content narrative? As the scene in this vivid landscape fades to the dark serenity of night, and the quiet stars blink into existence overhead, a new awareness stirs within you, a gnawing realization that this ordained skepticism is but the start of a quest, not only to understand guilt, but to unearth the philosopher's stone hidden within its depths. For now, you ponder a single potent question that refuses to leave your thoughts, echoing like a solitary voice in a grand, empty hall. How much of your life is truly your own, and how much is silently orchestrated by the guilt you carry? The air feels thick with questions as you journey deeper into this inquiry of self. You find yourself pondering why guilt, a force so intangible, has such profound control over your life. Its presence is like an echo of an ancient narrative, whispering at the edges of history, philosophy, and psychology. As you peel back the layers, searching for the reason it exists and why it holds such power. Renowned psychologist Carl Jung once suggested that guilt becomes a specter haunting our consciousness, an unavoidable shadow of our psyche's labyrinth. He believed that, like the yin to our yang, guilt and its cousin, shame, are the twisted roots of our innermost self-perception. They shape our persona much like riverbeds shape the flow of water, channeling our paths, but invisible until filled with substance. In this theater of the mind, guilt emerges as a signal to our consciousness, a relic of evolutionary genetics. It served our ancestors as a societal adhesive, ensuring cohesion and shared norms by dissuading behaviors that might threaten the collective stability. Arthur Schopenhauer, in a pessimistic twist, would argue that this communal necessity condemns us to a life never free from suffering, that guilt is the musty air of the cave in which man, chained, faces shadows and mistakes them for reality. Yet you pause to consider this. Have we evolved from such necessity, or have our psyches only allowed guilt to become more adept at camouflaging itself? Are its tendrils ingrained in us not as stewards of morality, but as wardens restricting our free will? Friedrich Nietzsche would challenge you here, urging a re-evaluation of the herd morality, that guilt enforces social conformity at the cost of individual greatness. But this philosophical query is more than abstract thought. Enter Jean-Paul Sartre, with existential realization heavy on his tongue, that hell is other people. For Sartre, guilt was a byproduct of the gaze and days, the judgment of others that reflects and redefines our own sense of guilt-ridden identity. To perceive oneself through the judgment of others is to live a life constantly constricted by its lens, sometimes blurring truth with expectation, leaving us unwittingly shackled. Consider now the interplay between these ideas and the psychological depths orchestrated by your mind. Cognitive dissonance is a staple in the human psyche, a clash between conflicting beliefs, values, or perceptions that unsettles your mental equilibrium. Guilt could be seen as both the harbinger and the product of this dissonance, a bitter reminder of a once convenient dichotomy, now perceived as incompatible. In Aldous Huxley's daring exploration of consciousness, one imagines a tapestry of human thought, vast in its detail, yet oppressively heavy. Guilt, in this metaphorical weave, is a hidden thread interlacing genuine remorse and the fear of societal validation. When stitched too tightly, it restricts movement and imposes an intangible rigidity on the fabric of personal narrative, suffocating creativity and the spirit. Through Viktor Frankl's lens of logotherapy, the narrative evolves yet again. Frankl asserted that guilt is a catalyst. It's not meant to linger but to spark a quest for meaning through acts of self-transcendence. Guilt, in its purest form, could ascend to a higher plane of personal reconciliation, transforming into a stepping stone for profound existence rather than a ball and chain. So here you stand, enveloped by these philosophical shadows, as if drawn into an intellectual dance macabre. This awareness of guilt's psychological and philosophical roots is like holding a lantern in a darkened passage, revealing that the path is not a random twist of fate, but a codified engagement between self, society, and time. Your curiosity begs more. How does guilt influence the very essence of your identity? How does this complex hidden force infiltrate the daily decisions that paint your life's canvas with colors both vivid and muted? With this web of understanding woven tight, the question looms large, demanding an answer, a revelation. What price does this silent controller extract for the autonomy it claims to defend? As the lantern of understanding casts its glow further into the dimly lit corridors of your internal labyrinth, the sheer gravity of guilt's influence becomes inescapable. Like a master illusionist, guilt operates in the shadows, its true consequence often obscured until those shadows are given form. You now stand on the precipice, peering into the underlying mechanics of how guilt silently shapes not only personal realities, but collective societal narratives. Imagine the mind as a fertile garden, each thought planted representing potential growth. Unaddressed guilt is a seedling with roots tangled in the darker, unexplored soil of your psyche. It saps the nutrients it needs, intertwining with your desires, resentments, and aspirations, growing in directions unforeseen and unbidden. This is the unseen consequence. You find yourself harvesting fruits you've neither recognized nor consciously cultivated. A sense of unworthiness might take root, expertly mimicking humility, but in truth eroding self-esteem. It holds you back from embracing your capabilities and from saying yes to opportunities that align with your true self. When praised, you shun the recognition, believing on some fundamental level that you don't deserve accolades. Perhaps beneath every self-deprecating joke or impulsive rejection of a compliment, this consequence whispers, "See, you are not enough." Consider then the downward spiral guilt induces in relationships. In this intricate dance of human interaction, guilt is the unreciprocated partner. Its presence warps connection, sometimes manifesting as resentment for perceived slights, real or imagined. Thus, you find people distancing themselves, the closeness you yearn for slipping just out of grasp, as if fled by an unspoken truth. In society, guilt becomes akin to silence in a crowded room, a shared discomfort everyone feels yet rarely names. It can forge unyielding cycles of behavior. Cultural guilt, those unresolved aren't you ashamed looks and murmured parental echo that shape norms and taboos, reverberate through generations. Over time, they shape societal institutions and habits, perpetuating scenarios where individuals become more concerned with virtue signaling than with authentic action. From a neurological standpoint, guilt is a persistent cognitive presence. The brain allocates energy to processing this complex emotion, even subconsciously, leading to a decrease in cognitive resources available for other tasks. Studies elucidate how successive alterations in brain function solidify into patterns, paths of least resistance reinforcing negative self-biases. The prefrontal cortex, instrumental in decision-making, becomes caught in a web of overanalysis, inhibiting spontaneous joy and creativity. As you stand amidst these revelations, you begin to sense how these unseen consequences of guilt shape larger societal attitudes. Consider the workplace, a microcosm of broader culture, where guilt molds behaviors and expectations. Overworking born from guilt morphs into a badge of honor, often diminishing the essential value of rest and genuine inspiration. More insidiously, guilt fosters compliance with damaging paradigms. It bows heads and hushes voices, urges conformity even at the expense of self-identity. It consumes aspirations, morphing dreams into obligations, as though unseen hands have placed blinders on your ambitions, steering them toward oughts and shoulds instead of wants and loves. Yet within this silent crescendo of consequences lies the stirring hint of rebellion, a call to unravel the intricate knot guilt has tied. You feel an urge, part silent scream, part whispered hope, pulling you forward. Seeking liberation, a question lingers. Could the very key to freedom also reside within the same mind that was? Enslaved? With urgency, you see how this narrative, woven with the threads of psychological insight and philosophical weight, leads inevitably to a deeper understanding, to a breaking point where transformation becomes possible. The panorama of possibility lays just ahead, waiting for the discerning eye to uncover the audacity to imagine life untethered from guilt's binding grasp. In the grip of realization, you stand at a critical juncture where the weight of guilt no longer merely presses down, it invites confrontation. This veil, once subtle in its restraint, is now challengingly apparent. Liberation, as it turns out, is not a distant echo but an internal rebellion, a revolution of self. Herein lies the daring art of sovereignty, the unraveling of guilt's tapestry thread by thread, until what remains is something both honest and unshackled. The first stirrings of this rebellion begin within, through a daring act of defiance against the cultural and psychological inertia that guilt breeds. Picture yourself standing before a mirror, not for vanity's gaze but for an earnest encounter with your own eyes. This mirror, turning into an oracle, becomes a powerful symbol of introspection and the starting point of real change. To reframe reality, you must first identify truths hidden beneath the layers of accumulated guilt, shed light upon the belief systems you've silently adopted. As Socrates famously urged, "An unexamined life is not worth living." Challenge these beliefs much the way Socrates would, with relentless questioning and curiosity. Are they truly yours, or are they the echo of external expectations? With each inquiry, you strip away another layer, allowing the authentic self to come to light, uncontorted by guilt's fingers. This rebellion escalates through a conscious act of release. One by one, pardon the choices that hang over you like ghosts of a forgotten past. Engage in a compassionate dialogue with yourself, extending the amnesty you might freely offer others. This act of forgiveness is not absolution but an untethering. Cut the threads that connect guilt to the mistakes you've already learned from, and watch as the weight lifts. Then comes the radical transformation of perspective. It's what Nietzsche would champion as the revaluation of values. He provoked the idea that what society holds as morally correct could be reinterpreted by the willful individual. This involves tearing down the false idols of should and ought to that society or upbringing built and, in their place, erecting personal ideals that align with your truth. Additionally, this insurrection brings a profound shift in how you perceive judgment. Viktor Frankl argued that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude. Adopt an attitude that recognizes judgment as either a passing cloud or reflective of others' insecurities more than your own reality. Step back from the trap of others' views defining your identity, and instead cultivate an inner monologue that reassures and empowers. Draw inspiration from historical figures who boldly lived beyond guilt's reach. Consider Rosa Parks, who in a single act of defiance transformed the seating arrangements on a bus into a crucible for social change. She embraced guilt not as a deterrent, but as a catalyst for reclamation of personal agency and equality. Similarly, Mahatma Gandhi's peaceful resistance became not merely orders defied, but a testament to the power of unwavering inner conviction. Further, creativity and innovation can blossom from this newfound freedom. Once guilt no longer dictates decision-making, a profound space for authentic creativity opens up, a blank canvas inviting bold, unedited strokes. The shackles repressing true playfulness, artistry, and ambition fall away, revealing capacities for growth and realization long held dormant. As you embrace this rebellion, recognize that it is sustained through ongoing vigilance and nurturing of self-awareness. Implement practices of reflection, like journaling or meditation, honing your ability to recognize when guilt creeps too close, threatening to reclaim its territory. By now, a fertile ground of empowerment and possibility stretches before you. With each step, the air grows lighter, and your pace quickens with the giddy realization of reclaiming what was thought lost. Your mind, once imprisoned, now dances effortlessly through ideas and possibilities, whispering the promise of a life reimagined, not dictated by guilt, but governed by the liberated spirit of autonomous choice. Privy to this burgeoning sense of power, the path ahead gleams with a promise, a glimmer of an ultimate truth that lies just beyond this newfound freedom. A conclusion, a final revelation awaits, one that could transform your perception and the very act of being itself. What waits in this final expanse, you can only wonder, but the promise of its discovery propels you forward into the yet unwritten chapter of your redefined narrative. And so you arrive at the culminating edge of this profound journey, where the horizon stretches infinitely in the mind's eye, yet the path is illuminated with clarity born from introspection and rebellion. As you stand here, with the echoes of philosophical musings and psychological awakenings behind you, the ultimate truth beckons, a shimmering insight ready to transcend mere understanding and step into the realm of deep realization. The ultimate realization begins with the acknowledgement of guilt's dual nature as both adversary and ally. It is a paradoxical force capable of profound suffering, but also immense growth. What if guilt's hidden potential, often masked by its shadows, is not as an external force of control but as a powerful teacher, a guide that can illuminate the mind's darkest recesses? In this moment of revelation, you see that guilt is neither something to conquer nor fully eliminate. Instead, it is an emotional tool, a mirror reflecting your deepest values and truths. When you engage with guilt consciously, not as a reflexive emotion but as a signpost, it transforms into an opportunity for transcendence. It becomes a catalyst for proactive choice, allowing you to navigate the moral complexities of existence with discernment and flexibility. Here lies the key realization. True freedom arises not from the absence of guilt, but from the wisdom to discern when it acts as a true moral compass and when it is merely a remnant of external expectations. This understanding brings balance, heralding the birth of a new relationship with guilt, one defined by dialogue rather than domination. Imagine yourself sculpting the clay of your life into a work of art, with guilt providing the contours of past lessons learned and future insights to embrace. Through this lens, guilt is neither a punishing reminder nor a relentless barrier, but an integral part of the craftsmanship of self. This understanding aligns with the teachings of Viktor Frankl, who recognized that life holds potential meaning under any circumstance. Guilt, when seen through the prism of meaning, can lead you to a higher purpose. It is a reminder that you are actively shaping your narrative, creating opportunities for redemption, resilience, and reaffirmation of your deepest values. Consider Joseph Campbell's mythological assertion that the hero's journey ends with the return, not with treasure, but with self-knowledge. In the epic voyage of your own story, the integration of guilt as a constructive force marks a return to the self, a powerful reclaiming of personal autonomy, infused with the essence of everything you've sought and discovered. Now, with this paradigm shift, each encounter with guilt becomes a deliberate choice rather than a sentence. You can choose how guilt informs your life, serves your quests for meaning, and guides you toward your authentic self. The poetry of life unfolds. As you grasp this final truth, existence is a dance of dualities, of freedom and constraint, joy and sorrow, guilt and liberation. Each step forward in this dance is your own, marked by an awareness that transforms enslavement into empowerment. It is a dance of creation, where the once-heard whispers of guilt linger not as chains, but as melodies in the symphony of your becoming. As you prepare to stride forward into the uncharted chapters of your existence, invigorated by this revelation, your heart pulses with possibility. The horizon no longer looms as a boundary, but as an invitation, the ultimate truth echoing softly, your life is your creation, and guilt, once an omnipotent shadow, is now a sculpting tool in your hand, helping to carve a masterpiece of constant becoming. With this powerful realization embraced and the freedom to sculpt your destiny anew, you understand that the journey is neither defined by its beginnings nor constrained to an end. It is a continuum, an endless cycle of learning, unlearning, and evolving where you stand as both observer and architect, forever free and eternally creating.